Woman wins.
Yes, that is a great way to end it right there.
Alright, so in conclusion,
I got beast
9 out of 10.
In conclusion, I can get beast by Max on
and we'll get to that. So, in conclusion, wrapping it all up, if you were scored, as you said, 1 through 10, what would you give this game?
1 out of... this game isn't perfect because it lacks a lot of the stuff that we were saying, like bare bones features, explaining to common players that a lot of the features that are in the game that they have no idea are in it. Lack of amount of modes, like things like World Tour mode in Street Fighter Alpha and the stuff in previous Soul Calibur games that have been around for years.
Yes.
They've been doing stuff like that in fighting games. I mean, sure, Street Fighter 4 was pretty bare bones, and this is even more bare bones than that. But all these things are kind of minor, because when it gets down to it, the fun factor for this game gets like 50 points out of 10. And it's so much fun to play, and there's so much stuff to learn that you can be playing this game for years. So, I'd honestly probably give it a 9 out of 10.
10 more years, my friend.
10 more years.
I think one thing that's kind of important to note is now that we are in the age of consoles that we're in, we can improve a lot of minor things with
downloadable updates,
you know,
downloadable
glitches
characters.
or unbalanced issues can be resolved now. We're not stuck with what we got forever.
Speaking about, what do you guys think about if it was what do you think? Is it a good idea that they put it straight to console, or do you think they should have put it in the arcade first?
I think the arcade, for the sake of the Versus series, has never been too popular in Japan, like at all. Marvel vs. Capcom 2's infinite success that it has is the result of an American audience and some other subsequent markets. No, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 sold ridiculously well as on Xbox Live and PSN, and that was just not like a reminder, but just to show that the people still love that game. And
right.
It's still there, so bringing it to Japanese arcades doesn't make much sense.
If there was still an arcade scene in America that was, I mean, there is, but it's not profitable. If there was still a profiting arcade scene in America, this definitely would have an arcade edition like Street Fighter 4 does.
The only arcade games you're going to see in America from now on are big game Buck Hunter type games.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Well, let's not forget that Street Fighter 4, did come out in the arcade in America and in Japan.
No, it didn't.
Well, there's no
Japan.
official
American
from
Japan. Okay, and don't forget that Street Fighter vs. Tekken that's coming out will be in arcade. Also, the new Tekken Tag Tournament 2 is going to be.
It'll be interesting to see if they come out in America.
They won't come out.
It'd be nice, but arcades will get them anyways from Japan if they don't. It doesn't matter.
Like if you have the means and you have the audience of arcades in where or around you live.
Yeah.
Most of them import games, and they totally will get it.
That's true.
It'd be cool if they did, but I don't think it's much of a factor.
Yeah, you can't really consider it because it doesn't exist in the US.
My only other kind of sort of small issue with this game, it's very minor, but it's there, is the roster. Not the size of it, because I think 36 is okay, but as you said, most games before Marvel vs. Capcom 2 were sub-20. Marvel vs. Capcom 1, X-Men vs. Street Fighter.
Everything before Marvel vs. Capcom 1 is around like a 20-character roster, like 20 to 25.
So this being 36 is actually pretty good.
It's the second biggest versus game roster
It's
ever.
not 56 like in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but that was putting every sprite they had ever made into
a fighting game, yeah.
Getting more to my point, though, some of these characters, I'm really not sure why they're in this game. Like, okay, Sea Viper, she's new, but I would, of all the characters you can pull from,
I think
Trish, really don't understand why.
The argument of relevance comes up a lot, which is why the majority of the Marvel cast was selected, and we don't see a lot of our 90s X-Men that we all remember.
I mean, you see Thor in here because he's got a movie coming out. You see, same with Captain America, he's back because of that too. X-23 kind of has a little bit more popular in comics now.
But like She-Hulk, I don't understand.
I don't understand why She-Hulk's in this game. I'm not saying she's a bad fighter or bad character. I'm just saying I don't understand the thought process and some of the selections.
Spencer is a great thing to mention too. Spencer's from a game that essentially came out busted and no one purchased.
It was sold very poorly. Pretty much put the developer underwater and made them go out of business. It's cool that he's in the game. It's cool that he's in here, but it's kind of like sometimes the reason why they picked the characters they did is because of popularity or how fresh on people's minds they are. But it's like this game didn't even sell. So where did that argument come in for Spencer?
And even Arthur as well. I mean, we get Arthur and we don't get Mega Man. It's the game made by Capcom.
You get Zero, but you don't get a Mega Man. You get Arthur, and I'm glad Arthur's in it. I like Arthur and I like Hagar. But at the same time, it's kind of like...
It seems like odd decisions.
Very odd decisions.
Some fan favorites like Strider.
Yeah.
Some fan favorites from Marvel vs. Capcom 2, they just didn't make it. And
from what I understand, Sentinel and Storm are in this game because of American influence and their popularity from 2. Otherwise, they would not have been in here. Which is cool that they're in here. But then, then you got people like this asshole.
Condom or Kodam?
MODOK. His name backwards is Condom. Very nice.
Condom.
I mean, he's a fucking head in a floating chair. I know what he stands for. I know he's a villain from, Captain America / Avengers, whatever. I don't care.
I think
it's a head
with legs,
with little dinky legs. And,
if you think about it, I think he's just a joke character. They put in something unorthodox.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But it seems like in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, when they had joke characters, they were a little bit. I don't know.
Like a Mingo.
Yeah, Mingo.
I love a Mingo. Okay, he's a cactus. He's a fat cactus.
He's a cactus with pants on.
But, he kind of has a little bit more mobility, and he's kind of, neat and interesting, hit with his moves.
MODOK can be good, but I mean...
He's good person to play as. He has lots of distance moves, but it's like...
Perhaps
why is he in the game?
Perhaps he's not relevant to the general, immediate Marvel audience or to the audience of Capcom side, because we don't know who the hell he is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's the biggest troll in the game, and the internet exists now, and there are many trolls who would love them some MODOK.
Yeah, and Deadpool makes total sense. Like, it seems like Deadpool and Dante are the very obvious choices, very good choices, but, and Wesker,
and they were in there from the start.
Yeah. And I'm glad to see some favorites like Tron Bonne. I was kind of afraid, we'd lose out on... She's a character that's kind of, hidden or not as well known that I'm kind of glad is in the game, as opposed to, say, I don't know, X-23.
Some weird.
X-23, I really hadn't heard of her. I know comic fans, probably know her, like her. But to me, it's okay. We have a female
And to be
Wolverine.
honest, Beautiful Joe, I don't know.
I think it's odd that Joe's in the game because he was in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. Same with Zero. These are both carryovers
it
from
seems
Tatsunoko.
That there was quite a few carryovers from that game, but at the same time, we don't see them on this roster right now, but Jill and Shuma Garath are in the game as well.
Yeah.
They're just going to be DLC down the line, but really we have Jill, Wesker, and Chris. Is that really necessary?
You guys should talk about the first builds that we played at.
There are, I guess there are Darkstalker characters too, but it's...
But they seem to be represented in bunches of 3.
Yeah.
3... Well, there's actually 4 Street Fighters now that Akuma, but if we look up here...
really similar to Tatsunoko in the first build.
Yeah, about a year ago when we were playing the original E3 builds, the game was very similar to TVC playstyle. It was not... as Marvel 2, and people complained about that.
Yeah, and the producer even went on record as saying the E3 build was Tatsunoko, and by Comic-Con they had changed it to play more like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So, there was a learning curve process for them, but...
That's good to know that they actually listen to the fans.
Like I said, minor quibble about the roster. I think it's cool that it's big, but there's just a lot of characters I don't understand at all. Ruby Hart was a completely original character in 2.
For Marvel 2, yeah.
And she was really cool. She was this really badass pirate captain chick. And here we don't really seem to have you can only say the only fun characters are maybe She-Hulk and MODOK. And I don't know if I'd really consider that fun as more of a waste of space.
It would be kind of nice to see them create an actual original character for the game.
It would be neat. It would be neat. But at the same time, it is a 30... We have a 35 characters? 36 character roster. And 38 if we include the 2 DLC characters that are going to get released in a couple weeks. So that's a huge roster for a fighting game that just came out.
Eventually you're going to find people like I love Hagar, I love using Dante.
Yeah, and all of them, it's not like they're bad by any means. You can do busted stuff with anyone in the cast right now and subsequent teams that they can put together. The game has just got so much possibilities, and that's where the fun is.
Yeah.
Is exploring, going into training mode, figuring things out, finding team synergy, and then playing your friends. It's amazing. That we haven't felt a feeling like this since I think the original Versus games, to be honest.
Well, that's a good note to think about. Is that what do you think they're going to? How much DLC do you think they're going to add to this game?
I hope they keep, unless they want to make Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and make a new disc. I wouldn't mind that either. But as many DLC characters as they want to release, I'll totally buy them, and I think the audience will as well.
I like that they're on the disc ready.
They're on the disc, but at the same time they're incomplete. There's been some information released, and some hackers have gotten into the Jill and Shuma files that are already on here, and there's some incomplete stuff about them, so they're not all done.
I think altogether, counting Shuma and Jill, there'll be 6 3 from each side added at the end of the day. I don't think they'll go past that.
And oh man, I really hope Strider's in there.
Yeah. Strider, Jin, and Captain Commando. They're 3 really relatively unknown Capcom characters.
I think if they're going to put Mega Man in here,
really cool.
If they're going to put Mega Man in here, Mega Man X should totally be the one to fill it.
So what do you think? You got new characters, new costumes, and not just new colors.
That's another thing. Costumes are coming out now, yeah.
And what else? What else do you think they can add in DLC?
Stages.
Stages. And
stages.
There's a pretty limited amount of stages right now. There's like 7.
They're really cool looking, and they do have a sort of interactivity where if you do certain specials, like say on the Resident Evil Tri-Cell Laboratory stage, if you do a certain special, you'll see the glass break in the background. The lickers will come crawling out and crawl around everything.
I personally like the Spider-Man one. Where
it doesn't affect...
The Daily Bugle is a really good stage. That's my favorite stage.
It doesn't affect the way you're fighting. This isn't Dead or Alive where like you have stage damage or anything. It's just
pretty to look at for an audience.
Yes. And it's kind of cool, but I think the game was really pushed to meet its deadline so they don't have too many stages.
But yeah, that's the thing.
The ones that are here are all good. Mostly. I don't know.
We could easily be playing this game in July. That's the thing, is that it came out in February.
Yeah.
I would not have been surprised if the release date of this game wasn't like July or even winter this year. I'm blown away that they were able to put a fighting game that's this much fun. Even though it's broken in some aspects, it's a versus game. They're all broken. But they made it fast and they made it good, and from what I can tell, they're planning on
I think
more.
at the end of the day, though, like you said, it's really fun. It's got a simple mode for people who just want to mash and have fun. I think overall, if you're new to fighting games, you'll have fun with this game. If you're very in tune with the Marvel series, you'll still have fun with this game.
It's important to have friends to play with this game as well.
I think the biggest downfall is some of the training mode is the teaching. The going from beginner to pro is
non-existent, technically.
Yeah, non-existent. Very big gap. That's the biggest failing of the game. And they try to remedy it with training mode, but they still kind of fail because learning how to do cancels, delays, hyper combo cancels, very hard to do, not explained at all. That's the biggest downfall of this game. Could be fixed though. They could have a download content that really revamps, updates the training mode.
Yeah.
If they did that, I could see it as becoming one of the best fighting games ever.
That's what prevents it from being a perfect as far as if we're going to give it a score. I might even say it's an 8.5 out of 10, but I just have too much fun with this game not to give it as close to a 10 as possible. And being from the background where I am, where I kind of understand how these games work, it's just too much fun. So honestly, in my opinion, it's a 9 out of 10. So
overall, definitely worth buying. If you're a Marvel, Capcom, fighting, or just in general like just a fun beat 'em up masher, not don't have to put too many
if you
hours
like
into
pretty
it.
games too.
You like pretty games,
it is gorgeous.
And all of that working together. Overall, it's a solid effort. So that'll conclude our video review for now, and stay tuned for next time.
Take care, everyone.